Joining me right now with all of this and more in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is the chairwoman of the House Republican Conference, Congresswoman Elise. Congresswoman, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks for being here.
Good to be with you, Maria.
So you are overseeing all of these committees in your role as GOP conference chairwoman. What happens Tuesday when these impeachment articles against Alejandro Mayorkas come to the floor?
Well, this is very important, as House Republicans are the last line of defense, and we're holding the Biden administration and Joe Biden accountable for the catastrophe at our southern border. Our committee chair, Mark Green of Homeland Security, has done a tremendous job and has shown to the American people that there has been a willful and refusal to comply with the law and an abuse of power in the position as Secretary of Homeland Security. You have a wide open border. It is the #1 issue for Americans across the country, and it's not just the border states, Maria, who are impacted. It's my home state of New York as well. Every state is a border state. So the committee will mark up those articles of impeachment and work through the process to bring them to the floor. And I think what's most telling is Democrats are refusing to hold Joe Biden accountable for this border crisis that Joe Biden and his cabinet have created.
Which is why you sent a letter to Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. You want action on the northern border as well.
Yes, because it's not just the southern border. We've seen an 800% increase in the Swanton sector, which is the part of the northern border that I represent, of illegal crossings. And wow. Kathy Hochul was not included in the governors who are providing support to the southern border. Meanwhile, she is begging for relief, despite the fact that New York is a sanctuary state and New York City is a sanctuary city where Democrats rolled out the red carpet for illegals. Now we're seeing that it's an issue not just on the southern border, but the northern border as well. And this is having real impacts on people's lives, Maria. Just last week, we saw in New York State, a high school in New York City sent the kids home, sent U.S. students home to house illegal immigrants. This is a catastrophe. Voters will and we must hold Joe Biden accountable, and we do that by electing President Trump, who had the most secure border in our nation's history.
Yeah, we're going to talk with Dan Patrick coming up, but as soon as Joe Biden walked into the Oval Office, we know he reversed lots of those agreements with Honduras and Guatemala, etc. One of the reasons Trump is doing so well in the primaries, Congresswoman, has President Trump contacted you about being his VP?
No, I'm not going to get into any conversations that President and I have. We talk a lot, Maria. I was proud to be with him in New Hampshire. I look forward to doing events in South Carolina as one of the many top surrogates for President Trump. I'm proud to be the first member of Congress to endorse him. And it is clear to Americans that we had economic success. We had a secure border. We had strength around the world. We are seeing the most unfit president under Joe Biden, weakness around the world, a wide open border, and historic Bidenflation because of failed Biden economics.
What are you doing to ensure there's no fraud in the 2024 election?
Well, this is very important to hold Democrats and the far left accountable. For example, we see that it is really egregious, and the first time in history, Democrats are trying to remove President Trump from the ballot. That is interfering in this election. I proudly signed onto the amicus brief standing up for Americans' rights to make the decision at the ballot box rather than radical judges and Democrats attempting to remove him. That's just one of many steps. In New York State alone, for example, Democrats are trying to rig and cheat and illegally gerrymander districts. We are standing strong for election integrity in New York as well. So we need to focus on all efforts to make sure that this is a secure and constitutional election.
All of this in the face of potential criminality on the other side. You have been working in the Oversight Committee in terms of an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Tell us what you learned last week in the Hunter Biden depositions and where the Oversight Committee stands in terms of holding all of this money coming in from foreigners to Hunter Biden and his companies, holding him accountable.
Well, this was really bombshell reports that came out of the Kevin Morris depositions last week, and I want to credit Jamie Comer, our chair of Oversight, who is doing a tremendous job delivering transparency to the American people. Were it not for that committee's work, the American people would not know that the Bidens benefited. Joe Biden and Jill Biden benefited directly. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of illegal money laundered from adversaries like Communist China. What we learned in the deposition from Kevin Morris is that Hunter Biden has $6 million worth of loans, that Kevin Morris purchased hundreds of thousands of dollars of Hunter Biden's terrible artwork, and the fact that Kevin Morris owns 10% of a stake in the private equity company invested in Communist China from Hunter Biden. Every American knows this is corruption at its core, and Joe Biden sits atop the Biden crime family. So this deposition was very important. I know the Oversight Committee is going to continue its work to deliver transparency and ultimately accountability for what I believe will be the greatest political scandal scandal in our nation's history, with Joe Biden at the top of it.
Wow. Do you believe Joe Biden is compromised because he accepted millions from China? And do you believe that's why he's so soft on communist China responding to its aggression?
Of course, I've said that Joe Biden is compromised. I've said that the American people know that the big guy, quote unquote, 10% for the big guy is Joe Biden. And you are seeing a very weak foreign policy when it comes to asserting strength to counter China. We're not seeing that from Joe Biden in the White House. And frankly, we're not seeing any strength around the world today. So the media is trying to cover this up, the mainstream media. But again, the bank records and the checks themselves, they are the proof, Maria, that this president is compromised and corrupt.
All right, we will leave it there. Congressman, it's good to see you, and you did a big impact on the college universities. Has the anti-Semitism gotten worse or better since the removals of the two presidents of those universities?
Well, certainly it set off an earthquake in higher education, Maria, and those university presidents, former university presidents in the case of two, sit atop institutions that have a rot and unfortunately deep roots of anti-Semitism. For example, in Harvard's case, when they announced the anti-Semitic task force to combat anti-Semitism, the chair of it is anti-Semitic and is known for anti-Semitic posts. So there's a lot of work to do. That's why the investigation on the Education Committee on which I serve is so important. And it's not just those three institutions, it's higher education across the board. But there will be a lot of work to make sure that we address this, to make sure that these universities are held accountable.
All right, Congresswoman, it's good to talk with you this morning. Thanks very much. We'll be watching.
Thank you.
House GOP Conference Chair Elise. Thank you. And now this. Texas